Hej och hjärtligt välkomna ska ni vara till Investor Update. Idag med AAC Clyde Space, ett bolag verksamt inom rymdindustrin och idag aktuellt med en riktad nyemission på 64,5 miljoner kronor. Ni som tittar live kan som alltid när vi sänder interagera med företagsledningen och det gör ni då genom att ställa era frågor i chattfältet. Vi kommer att hantera frågorna då i slutet av presentationen. Och nu på länk så ska vi ha Louis Gomes, VD för AAC Clyde Space. Då VD är engelskspråkig kommer presentationen att fortsätta just på engelska. Louis, such a pleasure to see you again. How are things?
Good afternoon. Great to see you. Things are good. It has been a good day for AAC Clyde Space.
Excellent. You are raising 64.5 million Swedish kronor to speed up the work in chosen areas, as I understand it. So please tell us more. What's going on in your chosen areas, and tell us more about the rights issue.
So what we have seen on the market recently when it comes to space is an increased demand for information, for service insights from space assets. There's been quite a lot of interest from institutional users, commercial users, and we have seen, particularly in the last half year, an increased demand for the kind of data, kind of intelligence that we are generating and the kind of services that we are providing to users here on the ground. As always, is very much our work is about making life better here on Earth. And we are doing that by not only supplying parts and components, but particularly by growing our data and services business. And this has been a strategy that we have been pursuing for quite some time. And as I say, over the last few months, we saw an increased interest for what we are doing, not only from governments and commercial organizations, but also from the investor community. And as such, we have had quite a lot of interest in our shares, in what the company is achieving. And that has opened the opportunity and has created enough interest in the investing community for several of those investors to approach us with interest in a share issue. And we have always said that we would do something like this when to grow our business, to actually expand our business. So today we announced that we are raising 64.5 million SEK. This will be done through direct share issues to a group of investors, some of which are new investors, and the largest of them is Nowo Global Fund. They are a new investor. They will now own about 4.1% of the company. It's great to have them on board. They are an institutional investor that invests for the long term. So it's good to see them leading this direct issue. But we are also seeing other investors that are ready in our cap table to return to increase their share, and that's quite encouraging to see. So we will issue a number of new shares. They were issued at a price of 110 SEK per share, what represents a discount of around 15% from the close on 27th of June. We believe that this is a good discount, a fair discount, considering the history of our share price over the last few weeks. But also it shows that there is quite a lot of interest on what we are doing, and the proceeds of this direct issue will be used largely to progress our data and services business, to grow, to expand, to accelerate what we are doing, particularly with the next two satellites of the Vireon constellation. In 2023, we had raised some capital to start satellite 1 and 2 of that constellation of 4. Now, with this direct issue, we have the funding to do number 3 and number 4, and in that way complete the constellation for providing that service. We already have customers for that constellation. We already have users out there that are waiting for our data and for our services built around that. And so this will allow us to accelerate that, to accelerate our delivery of data, but also to expand the user base and the customer base for that constellation. Of course, at the same time, we are growing our maritime services, particularly our maritime intelligence capability. We have announced recently that we are starting a program called Inflection to what will be the first use of our VDES constellation, a constellation for tracking and communications in the maritime domain. So we will be actually also investing part of these proceeds in growing our footprint in the maritime intelligence business, introducing new services, increasing the amount of available data that we have for our customers. This is, again, another area that is growing quite fast in the world. With all the challenges we are having right now in terms of geopolitics, there is quite a lot of interest in the maritime domain, in understanding who is using the sea for what, and we are seeing a lot of demand for data and information. So with extra investment, we can grow our business in that area, in a way that allows us to answer the needs and the demands from the market. And of course, linked to that is a growth in the defense interest, in defense and security interest in space. And we're also going to use some of these funds to grow that part of our business. We have been having many conversations and many discussions with the defense sector around the world right now. People are very interested in what we can offer. So this will allow us to actually develop customized offers, customized solutions for what those customers are looking for. So all in all, a very important day and a very important outcome for AAC Clyde Space.
Well, thank you for that, Luis. I have a couple of questions, and I can see that the viewers are throwing questions as well, so we will deal with them. But we have received a couple of questions before. And so let's start with the mechanics of the transaction here and the reasoning of the book building process. How did you work out the 15% discount? To some, it may seem high, EI generous. What's the thinking there?
So we actually we worked with our advisors. We worked also looking at what the market was expecting, and as I say, very much based on the history of our share price over the last few weeks. That seemed like a fair discount for the market. So it is a balance. It is a balance, and of course we always want to offer the least discount possible, but we also have to be conscious that the market has some expectations, and so we think it is a fair value.
So it's a balanced price at this volume. Could you explain the thinking behind this subscription by a limited numbers of investors?
So what we do constantly is, and many of our investors will probably have seen me do those. I present the company. In some cases, investors that come to us directly, they want to see. I do that in public forums. In other occasions, we've got advisors or banks or investment institutions that approach us and they say, well, we have a network of investors that are interested in knowing more about your company. And so some of those will approach us and they will say, we would like to invest in the company. And this is our offer, and this is what we would be willing to do. So we will, of course, do due diligence and do some vetting of those. We will look for alignment between those investors and what the company is trying to achieve. And as we say, we have been looking for reference institutional investors that actually strengthen our cap table. And so we work out that, but usually we are approached, people come to us and tell us we would like to invest in your company, and of course we will engage with them.
And is there a lock-up period?
No, not in this case. No.
Okay.
we did not implement one of those.
And we have some comments about strong institutional investors here. And so, forgive my ignorance here, but did Nowo already hold shares in the company?
No, they didn't. No, so they are a new shareholder to the company.
Okay. And going on the mechanics here, there have previously been concerns about transaction costs. So why a share issue and not raising debt instead?
I think ultimately, actually, debt would have been more expensive, considering the level of interest rate that we would be facing and the time that we would hold the capital. We would need it. That would probably have been more expensive, actually, when we looked into that. We looked into that possibility, but it also comes with costs. So it's also not cost neutral. So we actually looked into that, and it would be more expensive than a direct issue of shares.
And I have a follow-up question for the lockup here, and that is, what's the reasoning behind a no lockup?
Well, in general, lockup, just if you actually impose a lockup period, you are just effectively, or the new investors are just signaling how long they actually want to keep their shares. So in this case, we are working with investors that we expect to be actually a longer-term investor that are actually not interested in just buying now and selling quickly. And in that sense, it didn't seem to be particularly useful to have a lockup in that sense. It wouldn't actually add much. It would just signal that in 180 days, people would start selling shares. So that actually would be counterproductive.
I see. One thing that you know when you have a lockup is that when the lockup ends, there will be a selling pressure. So, well, it could make sense in that respect. I have a question here also connecting to speeding up the work. Vireon satellites, expanding maritime intelligence service and strengthening the offer to the European defense and security sector, as you mentioned, and there's a lot of things going on. But what triggered your decision? And we have a viewer question here, which is, if I can just read it in here, we already have customers for the constellation on Vireon. So are the new customers coming in? Is there any particular thing you would like to point out as a trigger? A lot of questions here, but
yes, but actually the answer is fairly straightforward. We have been building Vireon 1 and 2. We have always said that to actually answer the needs of all our customers, we need 4 satellites. We need more capacity, we need more timeliness, and more timely data. And as such, we have always been targeting having the 4 satellites. So we had financed number 1 and number 2. First one will be launched later this year, the second one early next year. So this is the time to actually start building number 3 and number 4. So the trigger is just timing. Now it's the time that we need to actually commit to our suppliers. It's the time that we need to commit to things like launch. And so this is the time to do it. So that is the main trigger interest of doing it at this time of day. But also the market is growing quite fast, is quite interested in what we are offering. So the opportunity is also there. So not doing it now, it just means we will delay things and then we risk losing some of that market.
And I have a question here, which is more of a statement, and that would end in a question here. So some would argue that the company has issued new shares too easily, and that a share issue should be a last resort, or at least require truly compelling cases. Now, you could argue that you already made compelling cases, particularly with satellite 3 and 4 here. But if we go back to issue new shares too easily, what would be the argument against that?
I would say that there is nothing easy in issuing new shares. Direct issues are actually quite time-consuming. They require quite a lot of presentations. They require quite a lot of discussions and talks. So nothing is easy. We don't particularly want to do it. But the fact is, we are a growing company, and we need investment and capital to actually grow our fleet of satellites, our services, our data business. We have been doing quite a lot of use, for instance, of government grants. Over the last few years, since 2020, I think we have received about 195 million SEK in grants from government, for instance, to finance a lot of our development work and our growth. We have another similar quantity, 195 million SEK, currently ring-fenced for us from government organizations. But the reality is, even that usually requires us to show that we can also invest some money. So although we have been very good at making use of available cash from other sources, we still need to be able to actually show that we can participate in that development with our own funds. And like we discussed earlier, we either do share issues or we get loans, so we raise capital through debt. And right now, the balance, debt would be more expensive for us. So when we have looked at that possibility. So issuing shares, to me, is the best of the two options. But it's by no means something that we just decide to do on a whim. It takes quite a lot of planning. It takes quite a lot of thinking about it. And it is very much, we can't finance in other ways, because if we could, we would do it in other ways.
But you're using the let's say the possibilities that are available in the market. Now I have a question that I received ahead, and I will combine that with a viewer question here. So if I understood your answer here correctly, in one way is that in order to get some business, you do need to show that you have some sort of critical mass when it comes to your cash balance. So you have already carried out share issue related to the Vireon project. So how were those funds used? And as I can understand, you need, let's say, you need a war chest. So a viewer question here is, in case of a positive message from Eurosat in the next 2 days, is there a need for yet more cash, or are you you prepared?
So that is referring to the Sterna constellation. Now, the Sterna constellation is a fully funded project. That is, we are selling payloads and equipment for satellites. So that's a fully funded project with a positive cash flow. We design it in such a way that it has a positive cash flow. So there is no match funding. There is no public-private partnership. In that case, that's just a straightforward. So for Sterna, there will be no need of us raising any capital. All capital we raise now is for our own data and services business. That's when we own our own satellites. We build our own satellites for ourselves. In the case of Sterna, we are suppliers of equipment, and that is what we will be doing. So that's a different type of business.
Oh, okay. So that won't cannibalize or infringe on the plans, as it were.
No.
So I have an insider question here, which I also will combine with a question that we got mailed in. The management and the board don't participate in this transaction, as I understand it.
No, I can't even. We have been on an insider log as soon as there was any discussion about this, so we can't even participate.
No, exactly. So, and the question here is, insiders said that they will invest when time is right. So, when is the time right? Well, it's not when you are on the insider list, I take it.
Exactly.
So how would you like to reply?
Exactly. So when we are in insider list, we can't do that.
No.
So we are limited on what we can do.
And speeding up the Vireon project here, what potential new revenues do you expect from these satellites?
We haven't announced those yet. Although I would urge, many years ago we have actually made we gave some guidance on what we would expect in 2030 for our Earth observation business. Things have changed a bit, not dramatically. We will be actually updating that guidance later this year. When we present next quarterly results, we will actually update that guidance because we believe that it is important for the markets to know. So we are updating that. So we've got that number. Of course, we have done a business case analysis, but but we haven't published that yet, but we will be.
Okay, so we have some questions here regarding the potential revenue from new investments versus the dilution for current shareholders. And obviously, as you haven't published it, do you know when you will be able to publish any revenue estimates?
Yes, so our plan is to actually, when we present results for at the end of Q3, we would actually update everyone on what our forecasts are for our data business. So it's a time. So coming the end of Q3, we will update everyone on that.
And I remember from the previous interview, you were quite confident when it came to the previous revenue estimates because you had a very good, let's say, visibility of future revenues. So may I just ask you a little bit of a cheeky question here, because obviously you can't comment on the share price, but there are a third-party research out there which has an estimate far beyond today's share price, of course. But what they do is that they have an estimate for full year this year of north of 450 million Swedish kronor. Given where you stand now, would you say that 450 million is reachable within a margin or beyond the margin? As you correctly say, we haven't published. We don't forecast. I'd say it's reachable. I can't say how reachable is or if it's on the margin or not. What we have said is that we will have double-digit growth from last year. So, and that's the only thing that we will confirm. But I would say the analysts, we are generally comfortable with the analysis of the analysts. But of course, they don't have all the information, and so they might miss their numbers. But it's in general, we are comfortable with what they are presenting. So you're not dragging them kicking, screaming, and lower the number, as I interpret here. You may not comment on that. I have a question.
I can't comment, and I can't commit to that number.
No.
As I say, what we committed is for double-digit growth from last year. So I'll let people make their calculation for where that took places.
So could you just comment on trends in demands so far this year when it comes to, let's say, the sectors that you're now focusing on mentioning in the beginning?
So what we have seen, particularly when it comes to data and services, is an increase of demand for information and for insights. And people are not just looking for raw data coming from the spacecraft, from the satellites. They are increasingly looking for the information, the analytics that comes with it. So we have been working through this year in developing our analytics products, our capability of delivering an information product that is a bit more complex, but also higher value to our customers than just raw data. So we have been working on that. We have been expanding our capabilities in that area, but also growing the amount of data that we can actually generate. That's quite an important thing. We need data. We need the raw material so that we can then generate the analytics. So what we are seeing is an increased demand when it comes to that, and that comes from institutional work, so governments and governmental institutions, but also from the commercial sector. Particularly, for instance, in the maritime domain, we are seeing quite a lot of interest in some of the new technologies that we are developing for tracking and communications from governments that see it as a way of making navigation and making the maritime sector safer. And also from commercial operators, there is a lot of interest, for instance, in tracking ships for understanding what cargo they are carrying. So there has been quite an uptake in that area, in the demand for data and information. And in hardware, we continue to do a strong business. We continue to have quite a lot of demand for the hardware that we are delivering, particularly in our products businesses. So the components, the power systems, computers we deliver to other manufacturers. We continue to see quite strong demand for that.
And we have a question here about the potential orders of EPS-Stema during the years. Can you give us any more flavors on the number of satellites that may be included?
EUMETSAT had an original plan for 16. They have since stated that they are looking for 20 satellites for the constellation, but their decision is still open until the end of this week. We will see what the final number is, but I believe it is a 20 satellite constellation now that they are looking for.
And also, I mean, given the fact that this is a growing area, and you have certainly underlined, well, let's say the increased in demand, and if one look at the viewer question here, everyone seems to be on board on that. But increased demand, is there increased competition?
In some sectors, yes. In others, no. We don't necessarily. We don't necessarily welcome competition, but to some extent, we like it. We think it's an important part of our business to have competitors. Competition also means that the sector is becoming more attractive. It's actually, there is more demand. So we see some competition in areas like hardware. When we are delivering products and satellites, there is definitely a lot of competition. There is less competition on the data and services. Partly because we choose our areas our areas of operation in parts of the business with less competition, but also because in some cases, like on the maritime domain, we are actually one of the leading companies in delivering data. So we have already our own constellation, we have customers, we have distribution networks. So we are in a strong position. It's difficult for new companies to enter that market because you need the satellites, you need all the contacts, all the contracts. When we already have those, so we are in a strong position in there. So yes, there is competition. There is more competition in certain areas, but we are pretty comfortable with it.
So it's a strong growing market. You've been around the block for so long that you have a brand recognition and people know you and the authorities know you, and now you have an institutional owner as well. So what would be the next news flow that we should look for apart from closing this issue?
Well, we have. We are waiting. For instance, you mentioned Sterna, EPS-Stema. We are waiting for EUMETSAT to make its decision later this week. They will decide if they go ahead or if they postpone that decision. So that will be an important point for us to understand where Sterna, the constellation, is going. We have several news this summer relating to our maritime domain. There are several new things coming up. We have satellites that are going through commissioning, finishing their testing before they come online. So we have important milestones there. Later this year, the launch of the first Vireon spacecraft. So that will be quite an important milestone for ourselves. So there will be a mixture of things, both in our hardware business and in our data and services business coming up over the next few months.
So the press releases from AAC Clyde Space will be many and worthwhile checking. I'll just end with one question here. Any plans to invest and expand the US business and operations at the moment?
Yes. So we have been in discussions about how to actually expand. There are opportunities that we are following. I will not comment. I will not describe them in detail. But we have, of course, been having discussions and with third parties and internally on how to grow the business in the US.
Okay, interesting. So more news to come. That is the conclusion here.
Yes. Watch this space.
Watch this space. Well, Luis, thank you. Very educational, interesting, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Och vi tackar er som har tittat och ställt frågor. Tack ska ni ha och på återseende. Hej!